Boxing coach, St. Francis Boxing Club in Limerick, joins me for our latest episode of Coaching Insights. Ken, delighted to have you on the line. Good to see you.
Hey, Don, how's things, man?
Right. We know you as the face of St. Francis Boxing Club. But tell me, how did you get there? How this chat is about coaching. So how did coaching come about in your career?
Coaching for me was kind of a natural progression, Don. Like boxing is an individual sport, but in a club like ours, or in a club like many boxing clubs, it's a great team spirit and a family ethos there, So as you progress in your own career and you become one of the more senior fighters or one of the more known fighters, young boxers tend to look up to a bit. So you spend more time with them, you might help them with around the pads. And so the coaching progression is there naturally. As you get a little bit older, you might help one of the older coaches with a session with the younger kids or with the beginners, and then you might help them out in the corner. And that's how you do it. You work through. Like any sport then, it's tough when it finishes. When you decide it's time to retire, because sport as an athlete takes over a lot of your life. And, some people define themselves by the sport that they're in. So a lot of the boxers find it easier to go back to a coaching role. So you kind of keep your hand in the sport. And that's kind of how it was for me. I retired fairly early at 21. And at the time, my dad was my coach. And Finbar O'Brien was just taking over as the St. Francis coach. So he invited me in. I'd done a lot of work with the younger boys in the club anyway. I knew them all. So I just did my coaching course then, and I became an official assistant coach. Done that for 10 years or so, and Finbar O'Brien decided he was going to step back as the head coach, and that's what I take it on, and that was 13, 14 years ago now, and we're still going strong,
Talk to me. A lot of people would see, obviously, boxing and the end game, the big fights, the pay-per-view nights, but talk to me about the sheer weight of coaching that will go into somebody from, as you say, a very young age, starting off with just pure fitness to getting them into the ring, to getting them better when they're in the ring, to progressing on to, as you have coached, champions.
Yeah, that's a tough one. As you say, a lot of people would only see the finals night. For any young fighter, they're going to be training 5 times a week minimum. Usually that's 3 or 4 times in the club, and we give them work to do outside there. Your road work, strength and conditioning work has become so important these days. There's a lot of, like any other sport, there's a lot of hours that people don't see. I suppose, Paul O'Connell talked about his 10,000 hours, to perfect any one thing. And I guess that is the truth. For us, it can be over so quickly. If I can get stopped in the first round, if I can go on. For us, it's 9 minutes. Our elite fighters fight for just 9 minutes, but they're going to have to train for probably 9 weeks to get to that 9 minutes. So for 3 rounds boxing, they'll probably have done 300-400 rounds training.
Tell me, do you look at young guys coming in? Is it a sport that you have to start young? Is it very difficult, like all sports, but is it even harder to take up when you're a little bit older?
Yes, it is. It is because we started championships at 11 years of age. So there's a lot of experience that's not on your side. As from a coaching point of view, I prefer when it comes a little bit older. 13 would be my ideal age for competitive stuff, because at that stage, most kids have gone to secondary school. And that primary to secondary school year, that's a big growing up year. And they've matured a lot. So I think from that age on, they're able to grasp a little bit more what you're expecting of them or what you're asking of them. I love training the younger guys. We start them at 9. The 9 to 11-year-olds, they're gas. I love training those, but try not to take it too seriously, if you will. It's when they reach about 13 that we like to, kind of sit them down and have a small chat to them and say, look, guys, I know at 13 it seems like you're not kids anymore. But at that age, you a little bit of maturity. So to answer your question, it is tough because you're after giving away a lot of years' experience. But they can grasp it a little bit better than the younger boys.
What's a typical night like in St. Francis Boxing Club? And how hard is it to manage different ages, different grades, and of course different levels and weights within those? It must be, it seems to me from the outside like it's been a nightmare.
It's a nightmare. I don't know what I call a nightmare, but it's typical for us. We're lucky. There's 6 of us coaches in the club, and you go back to what I was saying earlier on. All 6 have boxed for St. Francis at one time or another. So we know the procedures, we know the ethos, we know the codes of practice that we try to instill down there. So a typical night will start off with our kids, our junior class, and that'll start. So we'll be there at 6:15. They'll be on the floor for 6:30, and they'll work through till just after 7:30. There's an overlap then as our senior classes comes in. They start their warm up at 7:30, and we'll be out the door about 9ish. And so the average night you do your warm up, different warm ups for different age groups. They do bag work, they do pad work, they'll do shadow boxing, they do skipping, they do their fitness work, the core work, and they probably hopefully do a bit of sparring if there's someone there that suits. So there's quite a lot crammed into just over 1 hour, and that's where we have to have our procedures in place. And the guys and girls, they're great. They really are. They know what they have to move to next and what we expect from them. They're great kids down there. But it's a busy night. Then the senior class comes in and everything kind of ups a level. The rounds get longer, the punches are harder, the techniques we ask them are more advanced. And that's kind of our night. It's a very busy night usually. And that's our Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesday and Thursday, we'll probably do extra sessions for boxers with competitions coming up. The weekend, we're usually away either having shows in our own club or we invite teams down, or we're away traveling the country. So it's quite a full-time job, really, but we love it. Somebody did it for us. That's what we look at. There's 6 of us there. We love it there, and it's very tough. It's time-consuming, and of course, none of us get paid a bob. We actually lose money being coaches. Lose holidays at work. You lose money traveling around. But we do it for the love of it. And that's why a lot of coaches around Ireland do it.
Absolutely. You touched on obviously your pathway there coming up in Finbar, asking you to take over. Do you pick and choose like most coaches do from other coaches that you've seen, fighters that you've seen in the ring, techniques you've heard about in training? Like, has your training of elite boxers changed much over the last number of years?
Yeah, very, very much so. Very much so. Any coach who thinks that he knows his sport, he's wrong, he's short-sighted. You always see different coaches, different boxers, different techniques that you can pick a bit from, the good and the bad. And because it's an individual sport, even with their physical attributes, all fighters have different ways that they must go about their business. Some are pressure fighters, some are counter punchers. So you have to change your coaching style to best suit them. So you have to be able to do it. You can't. Everyone can't fall under the one category as a boxer. And so as a coach, you have to learn. It's easier if you find a boxer that would have boxed the same way as your style. But if it's not just to say, I would say a fairly stand-up middle of ring fighter. But I have to know how to teach a boxer how to hunt a guy down, how to put those bodies hooks into the body and head and all that. And the only way of doing that is by talking to other coaches, by studying other coaches, and by seeing their methods. And I've been lucky enough. I've been involved in a lot of the high performance stuff as I was coming on board with Billy Walsh and Gary Keegan. So I picked up a lot of that work. And always learning, always changing, always evolving. Otherwise, like any other sport, you just get left behind.
Yeah. So thinking about today's conversation, boxing is so technical. I was trying to equate it to other sports. It would be like having, a myriad of age groups of golfers, and then some of them play left-handed, some of them play right-handed. There's a totally different setup, different stance. And then it would be like playing golf in a close environment, right-handed against a left-handed. Anyway, the analogy doesn't work. It's too complicated. But from your own point of view, you were saying there, you have to be across every single facet of this because A, left-handed, right-handed, different tactics, say, challenge fighters, but also B, they're in there trying to knock each other's block off. It's not a go in tappy sport and move on. It's an aggressive sport.
It is. It's a full contact sport, certainly. You have to be able to train your fighters. Like there's 3 main distances in boxing, and we try to teach our lads up all those distances. To fight at, because obviously they're going to come up against different opponents, as you've alluded to there. They might come a guy that's stronger than them or a guy that's taller than them. So they have to be able to overcome all these obstacles. And that's very tough. And of course, then, like any other sport, you've got kids coming in, and some of them are naturally athletic. Some of them are not. Some of them, won't develop till a little bit later, in the career. Some pick it up very quick. So you're caught in the ethos, I suppose. Well, you're caught, I suppose, a lot like school teachers. You don't want to go too fast and leave guys behind, but you don't want to be stopping the progress of say, your better fighters or your more up-to-date fighters. It certainly is a tough one. It's something, I suppose, that we in the club, we do have conversations about. And sometimes we might just say, something, John could do with an extra night's work there, and one of the coaches might take him away, over to the corner and work on some special techniques with him. It's tough. There's no perfect answer, but we do as best we can, and you have to be aware of the fact that all these kids, all these athletes, each are coming from a different background. They're coming from a different athletic background as well as a home life, and you have to guide their, whilst keeping them as a team. You have to make their individual progress what's important for them.
Boxing is hugely ingrained in Irish DNA. We're hugely successful at it across several Olympic games, and I don't have to tell you that. But what is it about Limerick then that we have that it's very much in our DNA down here? We've always had success with boxing. What is it about Limerick people do you think suits them in the ring?
I think it's a little bit like our rugby teams. It's a working man sport. It really is, and I think that's ingrained in Limerick. Going back through the years, we fantastic families and some fantastic fighters from all clubs in every club, and we still have that. I think it's just that. I think one is because you know yourself. We hate saying it. We always say it, but people hate hearing it. We're the sports capital of Ireland. We are Limerick. That's what we are, and sport is ingrained in our DNA. But yeah, I think it's because it's a working class sport, really. Now everyone is welcome, but it's not as expensive as other sports. Kids can try it out. Everyone, as I touched on there, is welcome from from whatever area. It crosses areas, it crosses boundaries, it crosses families, it crosses feuds. None of that matters when you're in the boxing club, and I think that's why we've done so well. Not only is our natural sporting attributes in Limerick, but it's a working man sport, and that I think that's an answer to the question.
Talk to me then about in-fight. Is there a massive amount of tactics in-fight? Because, look, the cliched line, everyone has a plan to get punched in the face, but is there much, the higher up the levels you go, do you have to be more aware when a guy's in a ring of changes that are needed in between when you get those couple of minutes to talk to him during rounds?
Yeah, that's a very important point. First off, the boxer has to trust you, 100%. As a coach, you have to know your boxer. You have to know what they're able to do and what they can do in each situation. You only have a minute. Now, 30 seconds of that minute is your fighter trying to give his breath back and just trying to. So there's no point speaking to him then. So while I was taught, as I was coming through as a coach, and what's very important is two things. That's all you can tell them. Just two things. Because they're getting their head together, they're getting their breath, they're getting water. It's a very crammed minute, so they're not going to pick up everything. And I often see coaches in the corner. That's great. They're throwing the boxes. They're throwing more punches probably than their fighter throwing the entire round. So you got to keep it short, keep it sweet. And I think that's when the hours in the gym come into it, because he has to know, or she has to know immediately what you're speaking about in those 3 or 4 words. Because that can be the difference between changing a fight. That's the difference between winning and losing a fight or a title or anything like that, is that 1 minute you have with your fighter to change. Or, sometimes it's just say, you know what, things are going well. Let's keep doing what we're doing here. And they have to trust you on that as well. So it is very important, mid-fight, one, that you're able to read a fight correctly, and two, that your fighter is able to understand exactly what you need from.
Yeah, I was fascinated recently to hear, obviously, a friend of yours, Andy Lee, talk about Tyson Fury's fight, and he needed to change tactics. This is at the elite level. I was just fascinated by the simplicity of the message maybe that he was talking about at the time. Is that something that coaches talk about after fights? Do you talk to other coaches about big fights that you've seen on television? WhatsApp groups come alive. He should have done this. Yeah. He should have done that.
Yeah, well, I don't know about WhatsApp groups or social media. Everyone's an expert all of a sudden, but yeah, you touched on Andy. Andy is a brilliant coach, because Andy is a very intelligent fighter. and he sees what he sees. And to be honest, I thought he was only blagging us all in the lead up to the fight. I really did. And he was saying that Tyson was going to win. He was going to push Deontay Wilder back. I was thinking, he's obviously going to do the opposite. But he did exactly why he did it. And looking back, I know now exactly why they picked that tactic and why it worked so brilliantly. But obviously, that's why they needed. Andy was there as technical coach. That was his job. So he was sent away to have a look at Deontay Wilder, see not only what Wilder was susceptible to, but what Tyson could do. There's no point in Deontay Wilder being susceptible if Tyson couldn't do that. And they trained this technique for 6 or 7 weeks, and it worked so well. But yeah, I spoke to Andy on it after 2 weeks ago on it actually, and you will talk to other coaches, and coaches will come and ask you that, or you've done your job right. Coach come over and kind of call, you're a sly one. That's the way you're a sly one. That means you've done your job right as a coach for that particular fight.
So last couple from me then, the enjoyment factor you've spoken about, the family environment, the focus, all that's needed to be a top level fighter. Give me examples that people, would have obviously heard of previously, but also coming through of fighters that you've worked with that have just been the easier ones to coach, that maybe came in with the raw materials and that were ready to go.
The best guy I've ever coached was Andy. He's just, technically, he was perfect. I think when Andy went to the Olympics in 2004, if you were to build an amateur fighter, Andy was it. He was tall, he was rangy, very clever. As I said, a very intelligent fighter, really intelligent fighter, and picked up things so easily. His coordination and balance was excellent. So he's probably the best. Probably the best boxer I had to train was young Kevin Sheehy got arrested. He was just a sponge fighter. A young guy just coming through. He wanted to learn everything. And he was picking it up, and he was doing so brilliantly. And first in the gym, last out, wanted to know about all facets of the game, how to improve, how to get better and better. I love working with fighters like that. He's on the phone constantly. What about this? What about that? For me, Andy was the best fighter I've ever trained with, but Kevin Sheehy was the best fighter coach. We have a lot of young, good kids coming through now, and some established ones as well. I don't want to call out the names because I don't kind of like doing that. But I'll forget someone, or else you'll put a target on the back. One of the two. Yeah, we've some very good. I tell you, we've one or two, some of our female fighters. I don't like saying that either because once they walk through the door, they're told straight away. Once you come through the door, you're a St. Francis boxer, gender, nothing to do with it. So they spar with the guys, they train the same as the guys. Some of our females are excellent. We've one or two good young kids. We actually have our 2 9-year-olds, and big things are going to happen for those 2 boys. But you can't tell. You're 9 years of age, so much can happen. We had a young lad came through, and his parents were pushing him since he was 7. He joined us when he was 9. At 12, he didn't enough. He walked away, and that kid could have been Olympic material. So I don't like calling out sports athletes because there's no such thing as an elite 11 or 12-year-old. But in Limerick in general, in St. Francis, there's some fantastic young fighters coming through. There really is. Every club in Limerick is full at the moment. Well, not at the moment, obviously with the lockdown, but before the lockdown, every club was full. Couldn't take any more members. Just shows the interest and the enjoyment and the success that Limerick boxing has. I think once this opens up again, we are in for probably the next 5-6 years a golden wave of Limerick boxing. We have 4 or 5 guys and girls have decided to turn over as professionals now. So we'll see more guys coming through to take their place in the amateur ranks, and we can follow the professional roller coaster as well.
Last one from me then. It's a labour of love. You mentioned the hours, which are utterly ridiculous. I'm sure every coach that's listening to this is thinking the same. But for someone out there who is thinking, I'd like to give boxing coaching a go, the door is open. You're saying you're busy with full capacity of boxers. What about boxing coaches? Is there something you would advise people to get into?
Yeah, we've got 6, so we're lucky. We're very lucky. There's not every club has got that many, and there's what we can do there. Say 2 we'll be off for a night, and we still have 4 covered. But it's a great sport to get into. It really is. I would encourage anybody. If you've got an interest in sport, come down now. Like anything else, like any other sport, you can't just walk through the door and be brought in and given, you do the corner for that fella. You kind of have to earn your spurs a little bit, helping around, Obviously, the guard of vetting and all that would have to be done before guys are brought on board. But it is a labour of love. But it's well worth it when you see those kids. And I got to be honest. I think I've trained. I wouldn't like the number. I've trained over 1,000 boys and girls. I'd say in the last few years. I can count on one hand. Honest truth, I can count on one hand the amount that have got into serious trouble. And that's in a town, a city like Limerick. That's a very, very small number. So when you see stuff like that, and the guys and girls were probably going the wrong way and were brought back, it's well worth it then. So for anyone that wants to become a coach, anyone's got an interest, go to your local club, see if they're interested in taking you on, see how you can help. It might just be sweeping a floor, but every bit helps. And definitely, you won't be sorry becoming a boxing coach. Definitely. You'll probably become broke, and you'll probably, lose your hair or go grey like I am. But you won't be sorry. Definitely not.
Listen, Ken, appreciate all your time as always. Brilliant insight, and hopefully, fingers crossed, when this is all over, as you say, a golden age of Limerick boxing to come. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Don.